Hello, me handsome. So just a quick one with this one before we start. We are in Kristiansand. This is the final leg of our journey. Some of this, and especially the first half of this, does contain some upsetting information which is told by a tour guide. So some of this is not for the faint-hearted. So this is your warning now for that. But other than that, if you enjoy history, I hope you enjoy the video.
The head of the Gestapo, more about him later on. His staff here numbered, as I said, 40 people, half of them Norwegian, by the way. The Gestapo depended on Norwegians who were willing to work for them as interpreters, for example, and then they were drivers, they were prison guards, they were secretarial staff. So the Gestapo depended on local helpers. 3,500 prisoners were interned here or kept here for interrogation, or in many cases very, very brutal torture. We think something like 400 of them were extremely brutally tortured here. We'll have a look at the torture chamber later. And so this was an absolutely terrible place during the war. The people, the civilian population called this place the place of horrors. It was one of the most brutal Gestapo headquarters in Norway.
Cold.
So this is the torture chamber. Prisoners were tortured everywhere in this building, but this was the torture chamber. Before the war, when this was a state archive, it was used by the photographer as his dark room. When the Gestapo took over, they turned this into their torture chamber, probably because it's soundproof, no sounds are heard on the outside, no screams of prisoners being tortured heard on the outside, no windows. So we think that something like 400 prisoners have been tortured here in this very room, subjected to appalling acts of torture. Some of the stories are not to be believed. The torturers would often work in groups of 2, 3, 4, 5 people together. They would be drinking during torture sessions. The floor would be full of brandy bottles. Sometimes they would, in order to soften up a prisoner, waiting outside, chained to the wall, waiting to be tortured. They would bring him in here, force him to stand up against the wall there and watch a fellow prisoner being tortured. Or if the prisoner was refusing to cooperate, they might tell him, if you don't cooperate, we've got your son up here. So if you don't cooperate, it's his turn. So what does the father say? Who's like that? Torture instruments, whips, batons, pistol, whatever the English words are for all these things. The steel bar there was also used to torture prisoners. One of the Gestapo officers had the idea that such steel bars could be used for torture. There were lots of these steel bars here because this was an archive and they were used to support shelves. And so he started tying prisoners up like this, hands and feet together. The bar would be inserted under the prisoner would be left dangling under the bar, and then the beating would start. Prisoners would be left on the floor here, and they would beat the prisoner, all parts of the body, or one of the torturers who was very, very heavy, he weighed 110 kilos, he might get up on the chair, jump on the prisoner. So that's what it was like here. These pictures are from after the war, the Norwegian police guard, and then we could go into each story, it would take too much time. I might just mention this man here, very intelligent man, not as physically violent, but very intelligent man, very sharp memory. He was extremely good at setting traps for prisoners during interrogations. And then the second command, Mayor, Tom, he was the one who had the idea of using the steel bar to torture prisoners. These two, Tom and Mayor, had a special job to do here. They were assigned to execute Russian prisoners of war. Remember that the Germans needed labor, so they brought thousands and thousands and thousands of prisoners of war from the Eastern Front and interned them in camps here and used them as slave labor. If they tried to escape, run away, and were caught, these two people would torture and execute them.
And there we have the final little view of the Archivette where all this happened, just a view outside of it there. So that was just a bit of the tour guide we had. He was a very good tour guide. He spoke very good English, better than I speak Norwegian or any other language anyway. And it was kind of a harrowing story, which gave us a bit of nightmares, to be fair, for a while, about the things that happened there. And of course, as a result of this little trip we did go to see one of the world's largest guns that is still active and in place as well, on top of the cliff in Kristiansand. So this was really cool, and we got to go inside of it. As you can see here, it's quite cramped. There's one of the missiles that they would load in it, and there is the loader itself there. So this thing was humongous, and as they said, housed many people just below it anyway, and in and around it. It was really cool to just kind of have a little run around with this. And we were really surprised that, you know, if this was the UK, this would be locked up. You'd have to stand behind various barriers. You could just go anywhere you wanted with this. You could climb on it. You could move things around. It was quite crazy. And as you'll see in a minute, we do have a little bit of a play around in one of the bunkers, started climbing around, going in little rooms that possibly we shouldn't do, into little dark ways. But it was just quite cool to explore. But yeah, this has effectively been the end little vlog of our trip to Norway. It was really enjoyable. We're not the massive fans of the ship, I would say, or the cruising aspect, but we absolutely love Norway, and we love just being able to spend time with our family exploring different places, and that was really cool. And we had lots of interesting, nice food along the way. We met some really nice people, so it was a really good thing. I would recommend doing this if you ever get the chance. It was a really good opportunity for us, but we will soon be getting back to the wings as we know it. We will have many wing crawls and other little trips coming up, but yeah, overall, thank you, Norway. It was an amazing little trip we had with you guys, and we're so happy we were able to do this with our family. But we're going to kind of close this one off with a view under the turret, and as you could say, you could literally climb around with it. And this is the bunker that we end up having a little play around in. It was really good fun. I have to say, Kristiansand was one of the highlights of the trip, but overall Oldham was the one. It was incredible. Just views alone was incredible. I would not say views here aren't incredible, they are, but there was something about Oldham which was just really special, really nice, peaceful. You weren't in a town. There were very few houses. It was so quiet and calm. Really nice. Loved it every minute of it there. It's just a shame I had a little bit of a cold throughout it all. But these things happen when you go travelling. Then it was just a really good opportunity for us to be able to do that. So hopefully, of course, if you like it, we got many more. And as you can see, it's kind of where some of the fun begins in this video, where we start climbing around in places that, you know, like I say, if this was the UK, we wouldn't be allowed to do these sort of things. But it's different in Norway. They look after things there. They look after each other there. They respect what's going on around them and their history, which is why they've kept a lot of this. It's really interesting to see one of the bunkers that we looked in still had some of the original uniforms and pictures of Hitler and so forth in there. So that was really interesting because they respect the history of it. They don't like it, but they respect the history of it. But yeah, really interesting. But if you've missed any of the other little vlogs we've done, absolutely check them out. But all I can say is thank you so much for the support and the time you've taken to watch some of these videos and all my other videos. And we look forward to welcoming you back to many more videos to come. Thank you. Take care for now. Ta.